Have you ever wondered how people made delicious, creamy cheese long before supermarkets existed? The surprising truth is that homemade cheese requires only a handful of simple ingredients, very little equipment, and no special skills. In fact, many people are amazed to discover that their very first batch tastes fresher and richer than many cheeses sold in stores. Today, I'll show you exactly how to make homemade cheese from scratch. We'll cover every step in detail, from choosing the right milk to creating beautiful, soft curds that become fresh, flavorful cheese. Along the way, I'll also share the most common mistakes beginners make and the simple tricks that ensure perfect results every single time. Whether you've never made cheese before or you've tried once and weren't happy with the outcome, stay with me until the end because some of the most important tips come later in the video. Let's get started. Before we begin, let's answer an important question. Why make cheese at home when it's so easy to buy it? There are actually several reasons. First, homemade cheese contains only ingredients you choose yourself. There are no unnecessary preservatives, artificial flavors, or stabilizers. Second, the flavor is incredibly fresh. Fresh cheese has a delicate creaminess that's difficult to find in commercial products that may have spent days or even weeks in storage. Third, it's surprisingly economical. If you regularly buy fresh cheeses, making them yourself can save money over time, especially if you have access to good quality local milk. Finally, making cheese is simply satisfying. Watching liquid milk transform into soft white curds feels almost magical, even though it's based on simple food science. And once you learn the basic technique, you'll be able to create dozens of different cheeses with small adjustments. Now let's gather everything we need. The beauty of this recipe is its simplicity. You'll need about 2 liters or half a gallon of whole milk. Whole milk gives the richest texture and highest cheese yield. Next, you'll need an acid. Fresh lemon juice works wonderfully. White vinegar is another excellent option. Some people even use citric acid dissolved in water. You'll also need salt. Regular fine sea salt or kosher salt both work well. Finally, if you'd like, you can prepare herbs, cracked black pepper, garlic powder, dried basil, chives, dill, or other seasonings for extra flavor later. For equipment, you probably already have everything in your kitchen. You'll need a large stainless steel pot. A thermometer is highly recommended. A wooden spoon or silicone spatula. A colander. Cheesecloth or a clean cotton kitchen towel. A large bowl. And something heavy to use as a weight if you decide to press the cheese later. Simple and inexpensive. Now let's talk about the most important ingredient of all. Milk. Choosing the right milk makes a tremendous difference. Whenever possible, buy fresh whole milk. Milk with higher fat content produces creamier, smoother cheese. Pasteurized milk works perfectly. However, avoid ultra-high temperature processed milk whenever possible. UHT milk has been heated to extremely high temperatures during processing. This changes some of its proteins, making it much harder for proper curds to form. If UHT milk is your only option, you may still get cheese, but the yield is often lower and the texture may become grainy or crumbly. Fresh local dairy milk usually gives the best results. If you can buy milk directly from a trusted local farm where it's legally sold and properly handled, many cheese makers love using it. Just remember that raw milk requires extra attention to food safety and local regulations may differ depending on where you live. Now we're ready for the exciting part. Pour the milk into your large pot. Heat it slowly over medium-low heat. Patience is extremely important here. Don't rush by turning the heat too high. Milk scorches easily. If the bottom burns, you'll notice an unpleasant cooked flavor throughout the finished cheese. Stir gently every minute or two. This distributes heat evenly and prevents sticking. As the milk warms, you'll begin seeing tiny bubbles forming around the edges of the pot. Steam will start rising gently. This is exactly what we want. If you're using a thermometer, heat the milk to about 185 degrees Fahrenheit, or approximately 85 degrees Celsius. This temperature works beautifully for many fresh cheeses. Don't worry if you're a degree or two above or below. Perfection isn't necessary. Consistency matters much more. Once you reach the target temperature, turn off the heat. Let the milk rest for about 1 minute. This brief pause prepares it for curd formation. Now comes the transformation. Slowly pour in your acid. If you're using lemon juice, begin with about 1/4 cup. If using white vinegar, the amount is usually similar. Don't dump it all in one place. Instead, drizzle it gently while slowly stirring the milk. Use slow circular motions. Avoid vigorous mixing. Within seconds, you'll notice something fascinating. The smooth milk begins separating. Soft white curds appear almost magically. The remaining liquid becomes yellowish-green. This liquid is called whey. If you don't immediately see separation, don't panic. Wait another minute. Sometimes the reaction takes a little longer depending on the milk. If necessary, add 1 additional tablespoon of lemon juice or vinegar. Stir gently once again. Usually, that's all it takes. Once the curds have clearly separated from the whey, stop stirring completely. This is another mistake many beginners make. They continue mixing because they're curious. Unfortunately, excessive stirring breaks the delicate curds into tiny pieces. Smaller curds mean lower yield and drier cheese. Instead, cover the pot with a lid. Let everything rest undisturbed for 15 to 20 minutes. During this resting period, the curds become firmer and easier to strain. This simple waiting step has a surprisingly large impact on the final texture. Many experienced cheesemakers say that patience during these few minutes is one of the biggest secrets to consistently successful homemade cheese. While the curds are resting, let's briefly talk about whey. Many beginners think it's waste and immediately pour it down the drain. That would be a mistake. Whey still contains valuable nutrients and plenty of culinary uses. You can use it in bread dough for softer loaves. It works beautifully in pancakes and biscuits. Some people add it to soups for extra flavor. Others blend it into smoothies. Gardeners even use diluted whey in compost systems. So don't throw it away just yet, you'll likely find plenty of ways to use it. After about 20 minutes, your curds should be firm, tender, and clearly separated from the whey. Place a colander over a large bowl to catch the whey. Line the colander with several layers of cheesecloth or a clean cotton kitchen towel. Make sure the cloth is large enough to wrap completely around the curds later. Using a slotted spoon or small ladle, gently lift the curds from the pot and transfer them into the lined colander. Try not to pour everything at once. Pouring the entire pot quickly can break the curds apart and force them through the cloth. Once all the curds are in the cloth, let gravity do most of the work. You will immediately notice whey dripping into the bowl below. The amount of time you allow the cheese to drain will determine its consistency. If you drain it for only 5 to 10 minutes, you'll have a very soft, creamy cheese that's perfect for spreading on toast or bagels. Drain for 20 to 30 minutes, and you'll get a firmer cheese that's easy to crumble over. Salads. Drain for 45 minutes to an hour, and the cheese becomes much denser and easier to slice. There isn't one correct texture. It simply depends on how you plan to enjoy your cheese. As the whey continues to drain, now is the perfect time to season the cheese. Start with salt. Salt isn't just for flavor, it also helps preserve the cheese slightly and balances the richness of the milk. For 2 liters of milk, 1 to 1.5 teaspoons of salt is a good starting point. You can always add a little more later if needed. Mix the salt gently into the curds using clean hands or a spoon. Now comes the fun part. You can keep the cheese plain, or customize it with your favorite flavors. Fresh chopped chives create a mild onion flavor. Fresh dill adds a bright, refreshing taste that's wonderful with crackers or smoked salmon. Parsley gives freshness without overpowering the cheese. Roasted garlic adds sweetness and depth. Cracked black pepper provides a little heat. Smoked paprika creates beautiful color and a subtle smoky aroma. Italian herbs make an excellent all-purpose seasoning. Red pepper flakes are perfect if you enjoy a bit of spice. Some people even add finely chopped sun-dried tomatoes, olives, or toasted nuts for extra texture and flavor. The possibilities are almost endless. Once you've mixed in your seasonings, gather the corners of the cheesecloth together to form a pouch. Twist the top gently. You'll notice more whey squeezing out. Don't squeeze too aggressively. Pressing too hard can force out some of the milk fats that make the cheese rich and creamy. Instead, apply slow, gentle pressure. If you're making a soft cheese, you can stop here. Simply unwrap it, place it in a container, and refrigerate. But if you'd like a firmer cheese, continue to the next step. Place the wrapped cheese on a plate. Set another plate or small cutting board on top. Now place a clean, heavy object on top to gently press the cheese. A pot filled with water works well. A few canned goods can also provide enough weight. You don't need excessive pressure. In fact, too much weight can make the cheese dry and rubbery. A gentle press for 1 to 3 hours usually produces excellent results. During this time, additional whey will slowly drain away, creating a smoother and firmer texture. Now let's talk about one of the biggest concerns beginners have. My cheese didn't turn out right. Fortunately, nearly every problem has a simple explanation. If the curds are tiny and weak, the milk probably wasn't hot enough, or there wasn't enough acid. If the cheese is very dry, it likely drained too long or was pressed too heavily. If it tastes bland, simply add a little more salt after tasting. If the cheese feels grainy, the milk may have been overheated or stirred too vigorously after the curds formed. If very little cheese formed at all, the milk may have been ultra-pasteurized. These are common issues, and even experienced cheese makers occasionally encounter them. Every batch teaches you something new. One of the most exciting things about homemade cheese is how easily you can experiment. After you've mastered this basic recipe, try making different versions. Mix in fresh basil and oregano for an Italian-style cheese. Add chopped jalapenos and cheddar seasoning for a spicy version. Stir in honey and crushed walnuts for a sweet breakfast cheese. Blend in dried cranberries and orange zest during the holidays. Add everything bagel seasoning for a delicious spread. Mix in fresh cracked pepper and roasted garlic for sandwiches. Or simply enjoy the pure taste of fresh milk with nothing added except a little salt. Every variation starts with exactly the same simple method you've already learned. Let's also discuss cleanliness. Cheese is a fresh dairy product, so keeping everything clean is essential. Wash your hands thoroughly before handling the curds. Use clean utensils, clean bowls, and freshly washed cloths. Store the finished cheese in a clean, airtight container. Never leave fresh cheese sitting at room temperature for several hours. Refrigerate it as soon as it has cooled. These simple habits help your cheese stay fresh, delicious, and safe to eat. By now, you've turned ordinary milk into beautiful homemade cheese using only a few everyday ingredients. But we're not finished yet. How to store homemade cheese. Fresh homemade cheese doesn't contain the preservatives found in many commercial products, so proper storage is essential. Once the cheese has cooled completely, place it in a clean, airtight container. Refrigerate it immediately. For the best flavor and texture, enjoy your cheese within 5 to 7 days. While it may sometimes last a little longer, fresh cheese is at its peak during the first few days. Always use a clean knife or spoon when serving it. Introducing crumbs or other food into the container can shorten its shelf life. If you notice an unusual smell, discoloration, mold, or a slimy texture, it's safest to discard the cheese and make a fresh batch. Fortunately, this recipe is so simple that making another batch is easy. Can you freeze it? Many people ask whether homemade cheese can be frozen. The answer is yes, but with one important note. Freezing changes the texture. Once thawed, the cheese often becomes more crumbly and slightly less creamy. If you plan to spread it on bread or crackers, fresh is always best. However, frozen cheese works perfectly in cooked dishes like lasagna, casseroles, stuffed vegetables, omelets, and baked pasta. To freeze it, wrap the cheese tightly in plastic wrap or parchment paper, then place it in a freezer-safe bag or container. Label it with the date. For the best quality, use frozen cheese within 2 to 3 months. When you're ready to use it, thaw it overnight in the refrigerator instead of leaving it on the kitchen counter. Delicious ways to serve homemade cheese. Now comes the most enjoyable part, eating it. Spread it on warm, freshly baked bread with a drizzle of honey. Serve it with sliced tomatoes, cucumbers, and fresh herbs for a light lunch. Pair it with olives, roasted peppers, and crusty bread on a cheese board. Crumble it over fresh salads for a creamy finishing touch. Stuff it into mushrooms or bell peppers before baking. Use it as a filling for savory pastries or homemade ravioli. Mix it into scrambled eggs for an extra creamy breakfast. Add it to baked potatoes with chopped chives. Spread it on toasted bagels with smoked salmon. Blend it with herbs to create a flavorful vegetable dip. Because its flavor is mild, homemade cheese pairs beautifully with both sweet and savory. Ingredients. Don't waste the whey. Earlier, we saved the whey instead of pouring it down the drain. Now let's put it to good use. Whey is surprisingly versatile. Use it instead of water when baking bread to create a softer loaf with a richer flavor. Replace milk or water with whey in pancake or waffle batter. Add it to soups for extra richness. Cook rice, barley, or oatmeal in whey for a subtle boost of flavor. Blend small amounts into smoothies. Some gardeners even dilute whey with water before adding it to compost systems. Finding creative uses for whey reduces food waste and helps you get the most from every batch of cheese. Tips for even better cheese every time. As you gain experience, you'll notice that a few small details make a big difference. Always heat the milk slowly. Rushing the process can scorch the milk and affect the flavor. Use fresh lemon juice whenever possible. Bottled juice works in a pinch, but fresh juice often produces cleaner flavors. Avoid overstirring after adding the acid. Gentle handling keeps the curds larger and softer. Taste before adding more salt. It's much easier to add salt than to remove it. Keep notes after each batch. Write down which milk you used, how long you drained the cheese, and which seasonings you added. Over time, these notes become your own personal cheesemaking guide. Don't be afraid to experiment. Every cheese maker develops favorite combinations through trial and error. Frequently asked questions. Can I use low-fat milk? Yes, but expect a smaller yield and a less creamy texture. Whole milk produces the richest results. Can I use goat's milk? Absolutely. Goat's milk creates a smooth, mild cheese with its own unique flavor. Can I make this recipe without cheesecloth? Yes. A clean, tightly woven cotton kitchen towel works very well. Why is my cheese too soft? It probably needs more draining time. Simply let it drain a little longer. Why is it too firm? It may have drained too long or been pressed with too much weight. Reduce both next time. Can children help make homemade cheese? Yes. Kids often enjoy watching the curds form. Just make sure an adult handles the hot milk and any heavy equipment. Final thoughts. Making homemade cheese is about more than following a recipe. It's about slowing down, learning a traditional skill, and creating something wholesome with your own hands. The first batch may not be perfect, and that's completely normal. Every attempt teaches you something new. Soon you'll begin adjusting the texture, flavor, and seasonings to match your own preferences. Many experienced home cooks say that once they discover how easy fresh cheese is to make, they rarely go back to buying it from the store. So don't be afraid to experiment. Try different herbs, spices, and serving ideas. Share your cheese with family and friends, and enjoy the satisfaction of serving something you've made from scratch. If you enjoyed this guide, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another practical cooking tutorial. We'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever made homemade cheese before? What flavors or herbs would you add to your own batch? Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy cooking.